What's going on with Nintendo's game pricing? That's the question everyone's asking after Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, a re-release of a 3DS title to be clear, is being priced at a full $60. In fact, what drew my attention to this were the videos on the topic by RGT85 and Switchforce, and what they brought up is the apparent inconsistency in pricing. Notably, the Pikmin 1 and 2 bare bones remasters were marketed at $30. The full fat remaster that's basically a remake in all but name, Metroid Prime Remastered, was $40 and shadow dropped, and yet Luigi's Mansion 2 is now going out at $60, while of course there was also the controversy last year that Tears of the Kingdom clocked in at $70. What is going on? Now look, what I'm not trying to do in this video is to justify or explain away any individual pricing decision. If you think the games are good deals or bad deals, that's a matter of personal opinion. I really like RGT and Zach from Switchforce, and in fact, when I first got into Nintendo YouTube right at the dawn of the Switch, Switchforce was the first Nintendo channel I subscribed to for its really thorough and enthusiastic coverage of Switch topics, and so I always have a particular nostalgia for it and follow Zach's output. Nevertheless, Nintendo Forecast isn't so much about the emotion, but the probabilities. We can analyse the strategy and figure out where, as Wayne Gretzky might say, the puck's gonna go. So first of all, what is the purpose for Nintendo of setting a particular price? To start with the most simplistic assessment, they do need to make a profit for their shareholders. In order to do that, basic economics tells us that the laws of demand and supply kick in. If the demand for something is high, you raise the price until it matches the level of supply you're able to provide. If the demand is low, you need to drop the price to get people interested. The laws of supply and demand certainly help to explain the differences between, say, a niche product like Metroid Prime Remastered and a Mario Universe mainstay like Luigi's Mansion 2 being priced differently, let alone the pricing of a vastly anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild. But of course, Nintendo is not just in the business of selling one particular product, but about selling many products and becoming an entertainment company that has, through their game systems, online service, consoles, theme parks and now films, an ongoing relationship with the consumer. Therefore, while basic economics is an important prism to understand their broad moves, it's insufficient to say that supply and demand economics is their only consideration. The fact that Zach and RGT are upset by the pricing, even as their die-hard fans, suggests that Nintendo is at least on shaky ground as they go forward. So what are they thinking, and is this move going to be worth it for them? As far as I can tell, there are three main things they're trying to do with their pricing, and I'm going to go through them from their basic level ideas to their higher level considerations. 1. Logistically, they're trying to recoup the money they've made developing a title. A game like Famicom Detective Club can be priced very highly relative to its content, especially when it's being released digitally, because it's a big investment, particularly in translation costs, and yet the potential sales ceiling is low. Under these circumstances, I think many fans understand and are sympathetic to a relatively high price point. This is also why this year, as Nintendo tries to space out its releases to nurse along the Switch before the sequel system comes over the horizon to rescue their annual balance, it's natural that they're going to want to look for places to charge high when they can get it. Switch has a huge install base, and Luigi's Mansion 3 sold 8 figures. With numbers this big, pricing decisions have big consequences for their bottom line. The size of the cartridge had an impact on the decision for Tears of the Kingdom's pricing, although it's worth pointing out that, adjusted for inflation, Tears of the Kingdom was actually cheaper in most countries than Breath of the Wild was. 2. They're looking to communicate value. Now, their interpretation of value might be a little different from ours. To me, Metroid Prime Remastered is an amazing title that truly showcases the power of the Switch to its furthest extent while doing justice to a franchise that has traditionally been sorely overlooked. And Nintendo, I'm sure, sees that as well, but fundamentally for them, Metroid is not what keeps the yen rolling in. It's Mario. To a lesser extent Zelda, to some degree Splatoon and Animal Crossing, but in the main, it's Mario. Pricing down anything Mario carries with it risks as they see it, because it opens up the suggestion that they could sell these games at a cheaper price, and they always want to keep the association of Mario with cost and quality. To see where this can go wrong, look at Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Ubisoft are infamous for starting with high prices and then dropping them within weeks, so what happened when Sparks of Hope released? You know it. People waited because they didn't associate the Rabbids brand with high value, so when Sparks launched at what seemed to be too high a price, people waited, knowing that better value would come down the line. If that hurts Sparks of Hope sales, imagine the potential consequences for Nintendo if they make a wrong move on their Mario line, which contains by now dozens of million-plus sellers for the Switch. As a result, pricing high is a relatively low-risk strategy for Nintendo. In fact, pricing low might be their higher risk strategy. Because they are infamous for not dropping their prices, they do have some leeway to offer occasional deals and make changes that they wouldn't have if they were worried that people would hold out for price drops. But there is one further rationale for their pricing. Number 3 is they're looking to guide purchasing. Think about it. If someone walks into a store and they see Luigi's Mansion 3 next to Luigi's Mansion 2, what are they going to think? Well, if one is $60 but the other is merely $40, and this person hasn't bought a Luigi's Mansion game before and they don't know if they'll even like the series, the logical option is to go for the cheaper version, try it, and then maybe come back. Well, if Luigi's Mansion 2 is cheaper, they're going to go for that game first. Now, this might make sense from a consumer perspective, but for Nintendo, it's a disaster. Luigi's Mansion 3 is their latest and most perfected game in the series, the one that absolutely is the most likely to keep people coming back again and again. Do they want people picking up 2 over 3? Definitely not. They want to hook people in with the best experience as they see it, and for that matter as I see it, that they can offer. So it's essential that they price them at least equally. Now, does that mean that fewer people will buy Luigi's Mansion 2? Sure, but it's a loss leader for them to push people into buying 3, which is ultimately going to have more impact and be more likely to bring in future fans. This also works for smaller titles. Metroid Prime Remaster was never likely to bring in a vast audience. The franchise is, regrettably, quite niche. But in order to see the extent of the audience in advance of Metroid Prime 4, they released Metroid Prime Remastered at a lower price so that they could communicate to people that this is a good chance to hop in. They didn't have another Prime game to compete with, and Metroid Dread had already had 2 holiday seasons and was already purchased by most of the core gamers, so it wasn't likely to hurt the sales of that title, which, while good for the franchise, were relatively meagre in the scheme of Switch output. Did it work? Well, maybe. I guess we'll see when Metroid Prime 4 comes out, but I like the idea. One interesting issue that Zach raises as well is the idea that owners of older versions of games could have a cheaper deal to upgrade. I like this idea, but I don't know how logistically it would work with the 3DS, let alone older systems. More likely, I assume that many 3DS owners would simply give it a miss, or, if they like the game, double dip. I think this will be a bigger issue going forward if Switch 2 offers backwards compatibility with an upgrade feature for Switch games. Inevitably, sooner or later, there will be a Breath of the Wild remaster, and Nintendo will feel sorely tempted to release it at $70, but can they do that on a system where the original is playable? You might say no, but isn't that exactly what they did with Twilight Princess HD, released on a system, the Wii U, that was perfectly capable of playing the original title? I think they may need a bit more of an aggressive demonstration of the added value, something more akin to Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury as opposed to Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, say. But nevertheless, I expect this practice to continue for the most part. But what do you think? Please keep it civil and keep it grounded, like and subscribe, and check out RGT and Switch Force's arguments as well in the meantime. Anyway, have a fantastic and amazing day, and to adapt Zach, Nintendo Forecast, out.